Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Fisher, joined once again by Anthony Torgrud.
This will be fun. This will be exciting. We got a lot of things to talk about. And Madison's doing it as well.
Yeah, AJ, I like your limited edition shirt.
Thank you. Is this a brand that you know? I just got it. It was like $4 at PacZone. I don't know.
No, I just assumed it was limited edition because it said so.
Oh no, it's just green and gold. Matches my new gold watch. Christmas gift. So.
That's nice little flex early doors. Yeah. Do you know who could afford a watch today with the severance pay that they received into their bank account? A certain Mr. Paulo Fonseca might be able to go out and get himself a nice watch as a leaving gift. We have got an awful lot to talk about. We've got to somehow try and weave in the game that we saw last night. We're recording this on a Monday after the 1-1 draw against Roma. The fact that we have sacked a manager and hired a manager within the space of about 3 or 4 hours. Remarkable. I've never seen anything like it in my time covering the club. And we've got the Super Cup coming up. The team are literally leaving for Saudi Arabia tomorrow. So this is a chaotic period to end the year, shall we say. But I just wanted to give a special shout out to all of our Substack founding members: Des Windsor McGlynn, Tito Mac, Moritz Polman, Joey Gawler, Kemin, MG.
Sorry, I just laughed
because... Teasing it. He's not back yet, but MG, you can have your spot back. Kemin, Mats, Luke Villano, Raul Escobar, Rajak, Carlo Fassi, Nasser, Merlin Finker, Derek Favretto, Hevanly 13, Mike Schulz, JT Physio, Tarek, Marco Vilea, Roberto Ricinos, and a new name to add. Isaac messages me the other day. Add this to the founding members list. Ken. We've got Ken on there. So Barbie's fella now subscribes to us. That's fantastic to know. And yeah, thank you to everybody who's been supporting us over on the Substack during what has been, a very interesting, a roller coaster 2024. We hope that you've enjoyed the coverage that we've had over there. And we're hoping that it goes from strength to strength in 2025 as well. What I will say, we've had plenty on there in the last few days. For example, we did a bonus podcast where we spoke about New Year's resolutions. Some of those stand now and some of them don't so much anymore. But there's going to be plenty on there in the next few days as well because of everything that's happened. It's time to kind of sit back, gather thoughts, and then we'll put out some more thoughtful reflection rather than a lot of the quick hit stuff that we'll be doing on the main site. We'll have probably a lot of exclusive info, some background stories and stuff in there as well. So stay tuned over on the Substack. Yeah, and thank you for supporting it in 2024. Let's hope 2025 is a belter. Isaac's doing a wrapped, like a Spotify type rap thing for that with what the best things were on the site, on the Substack and whatnot. So stay tuned for that. A few comments from me and him in there. And yeah, appreciate all your support. All right, let's rewind the clock. 24 hours from the time that we are recording. It's 1 hour 45 minutes until kickoff at San Siro between AC Milan and Roma, the final game of 2024. It's a must-win, I'd say. And I say must-win because 4 of the teams above us have dropped points. So it was a big opportunity for us to take a step towards the Champions League's places again. And let's be honest, we've got an eye on the Super Cup. Need a little bit of confidence going into that with the first game semi-final on January the 3rd. Now, the starting lineup would be named in around about 15 minutes from now. Fonseca decided to go with a team that had 2 changes from the Verona win. Morata goes in up front. Reinders was playing behind the striker again, but Jimenez was playing as a winger because Leao and Pulisic both out injured still. Rest of the team the same with Terracciano in midfield, Teo at left back to come in to cover for Jimenez pushing up. So that was the other change. And everything's kind of normal. And then I'm going to say it was around about 45 minutes before kickoff. Pepe Di Stefano does a piece for Sky where he says, I have to be honest and tell you there's a strange atmosphere around Fonseca going into this game, as if something's changed very quickly. And the hypothesis of this being his last game in charge has all of a sudden gained a lot of momentum. This was then backed up by a lot of other sources. Matteo Moretto said that we were talking with Sergio Conceicao, who we're going to come on to. I even think, didn't Foot Mercato have it first, that Conceicao was going to be the guy taking over? It was a really random source that said it.
It was so many, so fast that I was caught off guard, I was ready. I was locked in.
Yeah.
I was blown away.
I deleted Twitter, so I was just like, "Are these guys telling the truth right now, or are they messing with
Mm.
me?" Because anything in our chat like needs to be taken with a grain of salt because of how many times people have like screwed around, So, um, I googled it a few times just to see what was popping up, and Yahoo Sports was reporting it. And I was like, "All right, if Yahoo Sports, New York Times, like something's got to be going on."
Yeah, I mean, you know what they say, no smoke without fire, but this was like
Mhm.
a lot of smoke and a very big fire, as it turned out. You could see the flames in this case. It was all a bit mad because from that moment, and I would say that it was a 5-minute period where obviously I'm in work mode ahead of the game, sort of waiting for comments from directors. Fonseca actually spoke about his team selection and stuff, and then all this stuff comes out. And first of all, my mind switches to how are we going to cover this in the best way? How can we get things out quickly and make sure that we're staying up with the story? But then it's like you sit back and process it, and you realize how ridiculous the timing of it all was. 30 minutes before a very, very big home game, one to end the year, and against Fonseca's former club, and there's so many subplots within it as well. Like you got Abraham facing his old team, Salamaca's coming back to San Siro. Like the headlines should have been all about that, and instead it's sort of like when the game kicked off, it was almost a funeral procession rather than anything else, because it's like no matter what the result is tonight, we're going to wake up to a different club tomorrow, and that is exactly what proved to happen. Should we do a little bit about the game now?
Yeah. Let's get the preview out of the review out of the way, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay,
Um,
so I think that this game, when all the news was coming out, it's impossible to talk about this without the context of all the uncertainty before the game. When the news came out, I feared that this would slip into a really, really strange and probably a poor spectacle. I thought Roma might come and try go for a point, because they're still trying to kind of stabilize under Ranieri, and I thought that we might struggle to find fire, knowing that the coach that these guys are playing for is out the door. How will the players react to that? Will they struggle to get up for it as much? I didn't see that. So whether we were kind of talking a little bit before we started recording, AJ, whether they knew about it or not, is it only they'll ever know. If they were looking at their phones in the dressing room like, lads, are you seeing this? We'll never know. Maybe they didn't know a thing. But what I actually saw in terms of the performance, and yeah, it was sloppy. At times we were disorganized, but I saw a team that really fought hard. Sometimes we lacked quality, definitely. It wasn't a polished performance, but we took the lead with a lovely goal. We had multiple chances to score. The XG is, I think, quite heavily in our favour. And Roma could have also snatched it at the end. I think in the second half we ran out of steam. But just generally speaking, that was not the game of a team that knew that their head coach had just been given up on.
Yeah,
Oh, no, but
we've
feel like
seen the way they play big games under Fonseca. You'll get the Derby, you'll get Real Madrid. They step up, they rise to the occasion. Now, you also see games like the Napoli game where we had a pretty depleted squad and lineup like we did for the Roma game, and they didn't do much of anything. So I guess the foil there or comparison is that they both were draws. This one, obviously, a much more exciting draw, a lot more on the line, it would seem, but we had our opportunities to win. There was the penalty, which I think you're the only person I've seen so far, Ollie, who didn't think it was a penalty. I don't know
Yeah,
if you
so
want to talk about that a bit.
yeah, I will. So live, I thought it was live. I thought when I saw it happen in the flesh, I screamed for the penalty. I thought it looked really, really bad from that TV angle in particular. And I'm still not like. So I'm probably quite old fashioned in that I want things to be really, really strong for a penalty to be given. I'm quite sick of the amount of penalties that get given in this day and age, especially when it comes to handballs and stuff like that. But with this particular one, what I could see was how undoubtedly the Roma player doesn't get near the ball. But I think Reinder's touch takes it so far away from him being able to impact the play that I don't know. I'm maybe now leaning back towards it. It probably should have been, but I also think you do sometimes see those strange calls, even in the middle of the field, where the referee will say, well, the ball was nowhere near the incident, play on. The one thing that I think works against Pisilli in this case is that he's gone sliding in and he's like half a second behind what happens, maybe a second. But Reinders isn't getting on the end of his own first touch, so you could say the ball's gone. Don't know, man. I don't know. I would want it given, but I can kind of see why it wasn't, if that makes sense.
Kinda. I mean, that's a sound explanation. I still think it was a penalty for me. You know, the way I look at it, was he was looking to do that first time pass and give and go, and then obviously when he cut back, he was taken out, so he couldn't get to it. But I get your point of view as well. But ultimately, even if that wasn't a penalty, if you just first timed it, like that should have been a goal scoring chance at the very least. It should have been a shot on target. I don't have the stats in front of me. In fact, I didn't even look at them because of everything else going on. But there were quite a few opportunities for us, and I felt like we probably should have won that game, and definitely could have won that game. But ultimately, we didn't win that game. So that's the troubling part. And then obviously Chukwueze comes off hurt, so we're even more screwed going into the Super Cup.
We have a whole starting 11 injured.
Yeah, we have no wingers, not a single one. Jimenez isn't a winger. He's doing a great job, but he's not a winger. You know, he's a fullback, and we might have 2 fullbacks starting wings on Friday. Who knows?
Play
that'll be
7
very
at the back.
we could park the bus.
Yeah, I should just play for 0-0 and try go through on pens. That seems like the most sound thing to
Is
do.
the
At the moment.
semifinal 1 leg or 2 legs?
1. Yeah, it's a one-off game. Yeah,
That'll be interesting.
so that'll be fun.
Is the final like a couple days after?
It's on the
May,
6th
March?
or 7th. 6th
Oh,
or 7th.
okay. So it's like
It's not in
a few
May.
days later.
It's no, the two semis and the final are done over a few days in Saudi Arabia. So the final would be against Inter or Atalanta on the 7th, I think.
It's the 6th actually. Yeah, you're
6th,
right.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, so get it over and done with quickly. Probably be coming home after that first game. We scored a nice goal. That's one. I'm just trying to pick out the positives from Fonseca's last game, as it turned out to be. We scored a really nice goal, and it came probably during our best period in the match. Fofana did brilliantly in his own half to break out the press and to spring a counter attack. Spreads it wide to Morata, who for once his movement away from the box was smart. Morata back into Fofana. Fofana feeds Reinders again, as he did a few days ago in Verona for the winner there. And Reinders finished first time with a nice shot into the roof of the net. Svilar, who was the man of the match for the game, couldn't get anywhere near it. That was a nice goal. And Reinders is now on 9 for the season. Looks like Puli's got a bit of competition. He's been overtaken.
That's incredible. Yeah. I mean, he's going to be our MVP at the end of the season, regardless of where we finish, you know. I think that's almost dusted at this point. I do want to highlight the return of Benacer. Came on in halftime. I thought that was the right sub. Obviously, you don't need Terracciano in midfield. He's, again, a fullback playing out of position. The fact we're starting 4 of them shows everything. It was nice to have Benacer back. You know, he was a little rusty, made some really poor passes, some poor giveaways that led to chances. But overall, I thought, you know, you could see the old glimpses of him return. Hopefully he gets that form fully back, and under Conceicao, he looks even better. That was nice. And then it was hard with the Abraham substitution because obviously Chukwueze was off. We don't have the players on the pitch for a 2-striker formation. There's a lot of moving around. You couldn't really tell where anyone was playing. At times he was right wing, at times he was left wing, at times he was striker. There was a lot of movement, and when you have that level of fluidity, it looks disorganized, and it causes confusion for both the other team, but also your players. So I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. And then Camarda came on late as well, but that was just like for Morata. Obviously, another thing to point out is Fonseca didn't even make it to halftime. He himself got a red card.
Yeah, and I think with this, we should probably build in the main talking point of the game. We've already touched on the penalty a bit, but Fabri's refereeing display was an utter fucking disgrace. Yeah. I mean, that guy, whenever he gets a big game, seems to completely let himself down. Tell you what did it, that booking for, I think it was Manu Kone inside a few minutes. It's like you're setting your stall
like
out
the 4th
there.
minute or something.
Yeah, it was so early on in the game, and I think, don't get me wrong, I think in the second half, when I know you shouldn't referee games by periods of the game, it should be like a consistent thing, but we all know how it works. The moment you give out that first yellow card, you set your table for the rest of the game, and that's how it's got to be. And as a result, he ended up having to give out stupid yellow cards. That whole incident with the Reinders penalty, obviously Fonseca really thought it was a penalty. He went absolutely mental, got himself sent off for that. Morata then got himself booked for protesting, and Teo got a yellow card for bringing down Dybala on the counter, despite the fact that it looked like he got the ball with his shin as he took a step inside. Could say he maybe bumped him off it as well, but whatever. And then give him a yellow card for that, which was it was far from a reckless challenge. It was far from cynical or anything like that, but that was the way it was going to be. He was going to be giving yellow cards for stuff that was a half shout for one, and at that moment everything boiled over and he totally lost control of it. It resulted in, I think Ranieri said after the game, all 5 changes that he made were because of players he was scared getting second yellow cards. And it's like, refs fucked up when someone came back to me on Twitter and said, how can the ref impact how a game goes? I was like, we saw it. Like, the game was played in the second half, I thought anyway, the game was played with a bit less physicality because both teams are like, he's going to give a red here, They just knew you play with a bit more feel.
Kind of a stupid thing to say. How does a ref
he said something. He said something like, he said he didn't negatively. I said the ref negatively impacted the game, and he said he didn't negatively impact it because it was still really end to end. And I kind of get it. It was still an entertaining spectacle, but it did dampen it for me.
Yeah,
I
get that. If they're saying the game was still entertaining, then sure, yeah, it was entertaining, but it doesn't matter. And a game could be boring and still refereed correctly.
Yeah, I mean, a manager's having to take off players that he wanted to start the game because he was scared of them getting a second yellow because the ref had lost control of the game. That's problematic, without a doubt. Relegate him to Serie B, and we'll see about the penalty thing, because no doubt the AIA are going to put out some statement, and they tend to clarify what they thought was an error and what was right, but from what I saw, there wasn't even like a lengthy VAR check or anything. It was just get back on with the game, which I thought was very strange. Also, there's some kind of forum thing. I haven't seen it myself, but they call it open VAR, and they answer questions about the most controversial incidents over the weekend and try and justify the official's point of view. And they didn't cover that one at all. They just left it out.
Yeah.
So
CBS tends to have their refereeing expert, who I disagree with and dislike a lot, but they always have her come in and talk about every incident. They said, the broadcaster said, like, oh, I'm excited to hear what our refereeing expert has to say about this at halftime. They never showed up. It was weird. Wow. It was very weird.
Yeah. One thing I will say as well, bit of credit to the opponent for one thing, and that was the equalising goal. What a goal Beauty. That was, man. Beauty. No complaints at all. Beautiful flick from Dovbyk and Dybala.
I feel like the goals that we concede this season have been amazing goals.
Yeah. I always think to the Cagliari away game when Zappa had the game of his life, just lacing them into the roof of the net from volleys and stuff. It's just that could only happen against us.
Dovbyk had a chance to, I guess, not score the winner, but score the opener, in the first minute or second minute, when he was wide open near the penalty spot and it just skimmed the outside of the post.
Yeah, that was a good chance, actually. I think the offside flag went up after that. I could be wrong though, but either way, it was a big chance.
Yeah, you're right. I think so.
Well, it might not have been because they didn't have to check it. But yeah,
this was Dybala's first goal at San Siro against Milan since he was a Palermo player. So
I know.
That's
10 years ago as well.
Been able to avoid him.
10 years nearly to the day, as well. Yeah, that's crazy, but it was a lovely goal. I thought Dybala, at least from their point of view, ran the show. You see something like that and you realise how much quality he still has. And, if he really is unhappy at Roma, there's talk of him going to Turkey. I'd pick up the phone. I really would, and say,
Yeah.
look, you could be a difference maker for us. I know we're not doing well in the league, but we've got Champions League knockouts coming, and you could be back on the big stage and then see what happens. But yeah,
He would also do really well in Turkey, though, I think.
Oh, he'd
oh
kill it.
God, yeah. Yeah, he'd be unbelievable there. It's just about staying fit with him. Ranieri basically said that. He's like, if you can do a few training sessions in a row, he'll do a performance like that. But most of the time he can't. So, it's unfortunate that he's made of glass, but there's a few who have been like that in their careers. Second half kind of remained at that fast pace with it being a bit of a tennis match going forwards and backwards, but with less quality. I don't think there was many clear-cut chances. There was like a header that hit the bar late on for Roma, but he was in an offside position. There was that one from El Shaarawy that Maignan did well to parry away at the near
Yeah, that was a
post.
great shot.
And then I think it was that Pilisi guy who dribbled all the way to the edge of the box and just didn't shoot when he should have shot, That was a strange one. But yeah, from our point of view, it was just Teo running, getting to the edge of the box and failing to make any decision at all, just like falling into a group of players. That got quite frustrating. But I think Chukwueze going off, and I'm not saying he was having a 10 out of 10 game, but I think he looked like kind of our main threat in terms of dribbling the ball into the box. When he went off, we didn't quite look the same after that, to be honest. We looked like we just had to be way more direct, and it didn't suit us too much.
We had possession for the final 2 minutes of stoppage time on the edge of their box, and we never once crossed it. We never put it into the box. We never even tried to pass it into the box. We just kept
It's like we're scared.
trying to get it more central. Yeah. They were so afraid of not scoring that they just waited to be dispossessed, and then the game ended. And that was really frustrating, really disappointing, because almost every other team says, fuck it, I have 2 seconds. Let me just take a shot and see what happens. And we didn't even do that. I would have much rather, I don't know if I'd rather have skied it, but, just take a chance. And I don't mean the 40-yard out shots that we've been doing, So I think Fofana did it, or Emerson, or Chukwueze. Someone did it.
Well, when Reinders gets half of his goals like that, everyone else is going to try too, right?
Not everyone's Reinders. And you know what? Reinders had a lot of those shitty skied balls from deep last season too. So maybe you're right. Maybe they just need to take them and eventually it'll land. But I don't know. It's frustrating when that happens.
Hey,
but also,
you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
You miss 100% of the shots you do take from 40 yards out. But not
Benacer had a good one. It was sort of, I think, 20 yards out, and that drew a save from Svilar. And there was another one. I can't remember who it was. There was another one that seemed to kind of swerve late and got parried. That was it. In the second half, most of our efforts were from distance, and that was perhaps a little bit concerning. But I do think we played the first half at such a high intensity, and we know we don't have the depth to be able to bring on fresh faces for the attack to keep this intensity from the front. So I do think our performance naturally kind of tailed off in intensity towards the end of the game, and maybe Roma might feel a bit gutted that they didn't snatch it as well. But a point's a point, and it wasn't the headline. That's the strangest thing about it.
You forgot about the result as soon as the game ended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like, okay, what's next? We're all waiting for the next breaking news hit. Is he gone? Is he not? And this is where I think we will do tops and flops and just move on to what everybody wants us to talk about. Top for me, I'm going to go Fofana, because I think one of you is going to give it to Reinders, rightly so. But I think Fofana's played an understated role in quite a few of the goals that we've scored recently. And I thought physically he was pretty dominant, and look, we did get done in transition a couple of times, but he's often on an island. Aside from that, I think he did a solid job off the ball.
Madison, you want to go?
Reinders scored our only goal, and like always, he's the heartbeat of our midfield. So,
yeah, I think that probably is the right choice. I'm going to pick Maignan just because I think he made some really big, crucial saves, especially that El Shaarawy one. I think he kept us in it.
Yeah, for flop, I'm going to go... This might be a bit controversial. I feel like I'm going to get called out being harsh in this one, but I'm going to give it to Morata. I know he had a hand in the goal, but the amount of times that we actually got the ball to him in the box and he had it with his back to goal and just fell over.
Mhm.
Or I mean, look, you're all going to say, we told you this has been happening all season, and I get it. Like I've been watching the same games, but it was just that night in particular. It's like, lad, we don't have any fucking wingers on the pitch. You're gonna have to hold the ball
Mhm.
for a bit. Not
Yeah.
a chance.
Yeah,
No,
he's
just
literally a
yeah.
worse Giroud. He
Reinders
was
was my
playing it all
pick, so.
season. Reinders is your pick for
I'm
flex?
sorry, Morata.
Oh, geez, I was gonna say, what the hell? I thought he was your top. Uh,
Yeah.
He can be
I'm-
both, right?
yeah, I'm gonna pick Emerson. You could make a 20-minute fail comp in his opening 30 of this game. I mean, it was remarkable how many times he ruined the play the second he got near the ball. Um, I don't know how many times I'm going to have to say this man's name this season when it comes to the flop, but we're certainly getting to triple digits here, it seems. But yeah.
Yeah, triple digits. Yeah. It was funny because on the I was watching on TNT Sports and Adam Summerton was doing the commentary for it, and he gave the little story about how Emerson Royale is just a nickname because one of his relatives, I think it was his auntie, said he looked like Royale jelly beans or something, which is a sweet in Brazil when he was growing up. He looks like the character from that. Literally, as he was saying that, he got absolutely skinned. The timing of it was just perfect. But yeah, I think fair picks. Right, let's move on. Final game of 2024 in the bag, and we move on to a new era with it. So me and Isaac are obviously trying to figure out what we're doing in terms of the post-match stuff. I've gone to him. I don't think we're going to get any comments from Fonseca. What I imagine is he's probably going to be pulled into a room by the directors and told, look, game's over, pal. And then we might get a comment from one of the directors to explain the decision or confirm the news, whatever it might be. And then Milan News are like, nope, Fonseca's going to speak. And it's like, whoa, this could be box office. I want to see how it goes. By the end of it all, and it includes, so there was, he gave the interview to Dazn, and then he did his press conference. And in both of those, he said he had no knowledge that he was going to be fired. He still feels safe in his job. He expects to take charge of the Super Cup in Saudi Arabia. Obviously got peppered with questions from journalists about, well, what about these reports? They're saying it's going to be Conceicao. Do you feel safe in your job? All that kind of stuff. And he answered them, I thought, with absolute, dignity is what I'd say. It must be a difficult situation to be thrust up there, knowing that you might be about to be ambushed. And then as he was leaving San Siro in his car, he stopped because there were reporters waiting by the gates. And they said to him, have you just spoken with the management? And he finally said, yes, I have. It's over. It's life. These things happen in football. And that was it. He drove off. And that was us without a head
Yeah.
coach.
It was I didn't watch the press conference, but obviously I read the words, and reading it and knowing the situation, my initial thought was that he was almost taunting the management by saying like, well, no one's spoken to me. I'll be at work tomorrow,
Right.
like, and I don't think he was actively trying to taunt them, but I'm sure he was defensive, especially after just getting a red card, another poor result and a must win. He's obviously on edge. He clearly knows the situation at this point. There's no way he doesn't, especially after being sent off before halftime. He had to use his phone to talk to the guy on the pitch to tell him what to do. So he's seen it. He knows. So it's a really shitty situation to put him in. And I don't know if it was his decision or not to, I guess it had to have been his decision if he hadn't spoken to the managers or the management to have that press conference, because we were saying like, I wouldn't have shown up to that. I would have said, fuck it. I'm getting fired. I'm not going to take this shitstorm too, embarrass myself further. I'm just going to not show up. And if I'm fired, I'm fired. Tell me, But he, bigger man than me, I wouldn't have done it. I could tell you that. And he showed up and he weathered the storm. And then, like you said, they waited for him because they knew. And when he left it, I saw that video. And that was when I felt really bad for him. Because up until then, it was just crazy rumors. We remember Pioli's and his 6 months. And then it was Ranić. Ranić confirmed everything's done with Ranić. This is Pioli's last game. And then kind of similar, it was during the game that it was Pioli actually signed an extension. Rangnick's no longer. They're going full force with Pioli, and it was weird. So we've seen these crazy things happen so fast, but there's still a lot of confusion, and everyone's like, surely that he didn't. That's not true. The game's on it's in the middle of the game. So then we're thinking that as well with this, and then he has this post conference, and you're thinking, okay, well maybe it's not true. Maybe there was mention that that's who they're talking to in the event that he gets fired, but he's not going to be yet. That's just who they've spoken to. But then it was like confirmed. And so when he makes that drive and he says, "Yeah, I just spoke to him. Like it's true. They fired me." You could see that he's like got a half smile on, and you can't tell if he is laughing or crying, but he's definitely holding back a lot of emotion. And that's when it hits you. Like it humanizes the people that, not that they're not humans, but you don't, you know what I mean? You don't interact with them.
Well,
It's
they're
not
no
your
longer
friend,
the
you don't
coach
know
of your
them.
team, and they're not pissing you off. It's like this guy was actually trying. Right?
Well, and that's the other
And I
thing.
think,
You know,
like,
he always had the best intentions for your team, even if it didn't work. And it
and
just
I
felt
think
like
that's
the
the part that
management
pisses me off. Like I think the management let him down. They did not give him the tools to succeed. And at the end of the day, like, you know, Conceicao is awesome. Like it's the one that I think most of us wanted in the summer. I wanted him because Oliver spoke so highly of him. I don't know anything about Portuguese soccer. He had a 72% win percentage with Porto over 7 years. Like that's phenomenal.
He's the best manager in Porto's history. He's got had 11 trophies in his time there. I mean,
you know, so like that's great.
Yeah, 11 in 7 years.
It's not great if the management is not going to give him the tools to do it.
Yeah,
you know,
it's just
he could be gone in another 6 months because they aren't going to back him up. So,
but it does, as far as the Conceicao thing goes, you know, putting the human side of the Fonseca sacking away for a minute here. Conceicao makes a lot of sense. You had a lot of fans over the summer that wanted a guy like Conte, and in a lot of ways, you're getting a very similar guy to that. You know, he's going to be outspoken. He's going to be very strong. He's going to call people out. He's going to definitely do it his way or the highway. In fact, there's a clause that says at the end of this is 6 months, either party, him or the management, could say, we're done. We're not going to finish this out, even though it's an 18th month contract. So that reassures me that he's saying, look, if you don't support me, I'm not going to put up with this shit. I'm out. And that's what I think we need right now. And the other thing is he's Portuguese, yes, which they've very obviously wanted between the two Portuguese managers here. But that obviously helps players like Leao, which I think was a big part of his renewal, was getting someone that he could really develop under, and it didn't seem to work under Fonseca until it started to. We'll see what happens with Conceicao. I would imagine you get more of the same. And it might help guys like Emerson. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I mean, someone's got to do it, but you have that. Plus, he's also played in Serie A for a lot of his career, albeit with Inter and Lazio. But he played in Serie A. He speaks fluent Italian, so you have that as well. I'm assuming he speaks some English. I don't know. But the point being, he's going to be able to communicate with a lot of the players right away. Not that Fonseca couldn't, but it's a different personality. And I think it's going to work well. Like you, Madison, this was a guy that Oliver and I obviously both also said we wanted. I think as far back as like April or March, there was Almorin and Conceicao. Those were the two names.
I said Almorin as
And
well as Conceicao, and look where they've ended up.
We all were looking in Portugal for whatever reason, but that's where we went. I tweeted this on the announcement. I'm happy with it. It's who I wanted. I think it's good. My concern is he set up for failure? You know, it's a very clear uphill battle when you come in 14 points off the top, 8 points outside of Champions League, and your first game is in 2025 for a trophy, or at least a semifinal of a trophy, against your son. There's a lot of storylines there, but that's a hard first game, and with an injury crisis, including all of your wingers. Every single winger is hurt. So now he's got a lot to figure out in essentially 2 days, because there's a travel day. Today was the introduction. I know he had his first session. It's probably still ongoing right now. We don't know how that's gone yet as far as the quality of it, but I would imagine
probably more injuries.
Someone probably dropped dead.
Everyone's due back in the middle of the month, though, so it's not like he's without them for long.
Yeah, but he's without them in this first major test, and I think people are going to weigh it a lot more heavily than they should, because
Yeah.
I don't think anyone gave a shit if we won it under Fonseca. It was an opportunity for a trophy that everyone should want us to go for, and I think everyone did. But no one anticipated it, and no one was really going to be upset if we were, say, sitting in second or third. It would have been like, yeah, we could go for it, but we crashed out. Yeah, whatever. Still Champions League, still the Scudetto. But now that it's like, we're definitely not winning the Scudetto. There's no way there's going to be a 5-game swing for 6 teams above us. That's not happening, so we're not getting there. We might get Champions League, 3-game swing for a few of the teams above us. Okay, it's possible. But it's just an uphill battle, and I hope he gets the reinforcement he needs for the window that opens in 2 days. So hopefully he could figure out what he needs. Otherwise he's got to trust Furlani and Moncada, and they're the people who got us Emerson. So I don't know if we can trust them. And it's going to set him up for a lot of trouble. And I hope come May, when the season ends, even if it's not ideal, even if we don't get Champions League, we see some sort of ideas, some progress. And I think hopefully he stays, and then we get a real full season under him to build and see what he could do. And I think that'll be good. But it's unfortunate to be starting over in December, a day before New Year's, and it's a write-off season already.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
they're going to want him to get some kind of European competition. That's the goal, whether it be Conference, Europa, Goals, Champions League. I also don't think that this was decided in the last 24 hours. I think that they've been making this move for a while, but he was probably hard to negotiate with because he's not an idiot. He knows that we're not spending money, and I guarantee you that 6-month clause in his contract was really hard to negotiate in.
Yeah, Sarri
Because if
said
he
no to
steps
it,
away,
apparently.
Yeah, if he steps away, that is a huge black eye.
Yeah.
Because no one's going to want this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
if he
yeah,
steps away
yeah.
and he's like, why would I continue? They are not investing. That's Jerry's reputation gone. He doesn't have a reputation.
If they failed
Like,
their
it's gone.
last 2 head coaches as well, then it's like, we become so much more unattractive. I've seen someone suggest that we're going to try this out for like 6 months as a trial, and then we're going to trigger De Zerbi's clause next summer. And it's like, what are we trying to fix here by doing this kind of thing? I
have
know,
a bit of a hypothesis, and you could even call it a conspiracy. It's a bit more far-fetched, but now that Redbird have refinanced that loan, maybe they got a lot of capital just laying around. You saw rumors of a obligation to buy Darwin, where a total deal of 50 million. Look, I'm not a big fan of Darwin Núñez, but if we're going for a 50 million euro player in January, and we're getting a new coach, maybe there's a little something there.
Imagine. Yeah. I'd love you to be right on that, but
towards Jerry right now, I think that's really got to him, because remember, the protest is what prevented Lopetegui, and the protests now are not directed towards Fonseca; they're directed towards Jerry and selling the club.
And what's wild is during the protest, Fonseca did not get booed. They didn't cheer him. They didn't jeer him. Like, it was just quiet. I was just like, that's wild, man.
I honestly
Harvard
think
interview
that Jerry,
comes out. I think he might say, I better save some face here.
I think Jerry is probably more likely to react the other way and be like, well, fuck it, you're getting nothing then. Because there was a report that came out, Daniele Longo said it. So, wherever you put him into your thing, said that he was annoyed by the response that had come after the refinancing of the loan news, because he thought it was something that would be received positively because it's stability for the club. He thought that the fans would see it in a good light, and instead he's been kind of surprised by the negative reaction, and he's quite annoyed
because
with
people
the fan
wanted him
base
out.
Yeah, and that was it. In the first 5 minutes of the game last night, they were chanting "Cardinale, you have to sell." And I think that the fans are making it clear that they understand where the real problem is within the club. It's like with Fonseca, and I'll say a little bit about Fonseca in a second. But with sacking Fonseca and hiring somebody who was on the list in the summer mid-season for all the reasons you guys have said about how difficult a job it is to undertake, it does give a feeling of rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. It's like, the head coach is always the fall guy. I get it. He's always the one who's held to the highest level of accountability when it comes to performances and results, when it comes to man management, and when it comes to relationship with other figures in the management. These are all things that I think Fonseca has added up for him to lose his job. But who says the next guy is going to do any better in dealing with it all, especially when he's a more combative person by nature? Like AJ said about him being a Conte-like character, he ain't going to take any shit. And that's what makes me wonder what the directors are thinking with who they're going out and hiring. They're hiring somebody who definitely could have had altercations with Leao and Teo Hernandez, definitely would have called out a team for bullshit attitude in the media. If these are all things that added up to the other guy being sacked, be prepared to see it again and possibly worse. There are bigger culture problems at the club to fix than something like that. And that's where you come on to the fan reception that we saw for Fonseca last night. And actually there were some fans who waited for him when he left Milanello today to say thank you for everything. Not that everything was an Inter and a Real Madrid win, but I think that fans had sort of come around to him and understood that he was doing everything for the betterment of the club, and he was almost doing everything as the fans would want it to be done. We'd love to be there in training, calling the team out when we see a shit effort level. We'd love to be able to go to the cameras and say to millions of people who are watching, what I've just seen is unacceptable from my team. We'd love to do that. We felt like, very briefly, he was one of us and he was driving the standards up and he was making difficult decisions because he wanted everything to get better. He wanted the dressing room to be sorted out. He wanted to start seeing proper football, like the brand that he wants to play. And unfortunately, we never really got there with it. And I think when it came to it, he was running into and clashing with too many heads at the same time. And I think that, I think that by the end, maybe it wasn't a difficult decision because there's rumours that he had a quite heated argument with Ibrahimovic towards the end. In fact, the day before the Roma game or even the morning of the Roma game. If there's any truth to that, not sure. I'm sure we'll hear a bit more about it down the line, but the way that he handled his interviews after the game and stuff, it didn't feel like that for me. He seemed to be actually blindsided by the news that he might be losing his job. But there's a sadness to it all for me. And like you said, AJ, there was just one moment, and that was when he was leaving the stadium last night, where it just kind of sunk into me that, okay, you might have your opinions about Fonseca the coach, but I think Fonseca the bloke deserved a lot better than that. I think that it was disgustingly handled. That 3 hours is probably the most ashamed that I've been to be a Milan fan. Where the butter jokes from rivals because our directors are cowering away while our head coach is up there at a press conference and speaking to the media, thinking that he still has a job. And then he's pulled into a room and told that he isn't, so he has to drive out the stadium announcing his own sacking because the club haven't even come out and confirmed it yet. Honestly, it's like something from a fucking drama series or something. Like it's like a soap opera thing. I'm actually astounded, and people hit back and say you shouldn't be. We've told you about this management all along. I am actually astounded at the levels of disrespect and incompetence that were shown last night. And I think in the eyes of many, and I hope in the eyes of many, that's it. This lot ain't coming back from that. There's nothing they could do that could make me feel respect for them blokes now, who call themselves our directors. The thing that really tipped me towards the edge was the 125th party when they left the players out there to dry and went in through a side entrance. We spoke about that at the time. You could say it was a security thing. You say the players wanted to have the red carpet opportunity, whatever. You can make your excuses for that. But that last night was fucking shameful from start to finish. And it just makes me sad. It makes me angry. It makes me everything. But like, I'm getting texts from people who are not particularly sure. They don't follow Italian football like we do. And they're like, what the fuck's going on at Milan? And I have to go back and say, I have no idea. And neither, I don't think the people who run the fucking thing do either. It was dreadful. It was absolutely dreadful. Rant over.
If I speak,
yeah.
Go ahead, Madison.
I don't know what else to say. You're are correct.
Yeah, it feels
you.
in a weird way like a funeral almost, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and no one's mourning the loss of Fonseca, but in a weird sense, it does feel like a bigger picture loss. The
Mhm.
Yeah.
culture of the club's very different. You know, when I'm going to bring up the Maldini sacking because obviously a lot of people are going to comment, I told you so about Maldini, blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah.
look, whether you agree with the sacking or not, I always held firm that I disagreed with how it went down. You know, no announcement ever from them about the sacking of Maldini. That was odd, right? Like they posted it on the website, but they didn't tweet it. And they put on Instagram like they do every other announcement and still have since then as well. Very obviously trying to brush that under. And you could say, and I think we did say at the time, like that was because of the obvious backlash that was coming, whether you thought Maldini deserved it, whether they thought he was doing a good job or not. No one forgets or disrespects who he is as a club icon and what he meant to us as a player. So I think they knew there's going to be a lot of backlash with the sacking. They hide it. It's wrong. We all disagree with it, but you kind of understand the thought process there. And then
Yeah.
with this is the next sacking since. You know, there's been non-camera facing people who have left the club since Maldini, obviously, but that stuff doesn't get announced anyways because it doesn't really matter to the overall big picture to the fans. You had some upper management like Kasper Silsvig. He was a CCO. He left. That wasn't a big deal. Whatever. They put an announcement. Okay. This one is a big deal to everyone. If you're a casual, if you're a hardcore, everyone knows who the manager of the team is. So when he leaves and he has to announce it after being fed to the wolves at this press conference, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth because of the management. You know, that's no one wants to be disrespected like that. Oh, the arm of my chair finally fell off. You just I don't know. I mean, what else is there to say? It's fucked. It's a shitty
I just
situation.
want to add as well that like I think the thing that really resonates with fans is that we certainly the club project an image of being a club that does things in a certain way. You know, they do everything with a level of dignity, with humility. We're a club that, as Scaroni has said multiple times, and yeah, I get it, he shouldn't be the one speaking for us, but he's the president, blah, 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 said that, you know, we're not going to go out and publicly contest refereeing decisions because it's not the Milan way. We like to do things with style. You know, we didn't go for a manager like Conte because we don't like the controversial. We don't like the outspoken. We like things to be done the Milan way. And it's like, you have just fucking set all of that on fire with what you did last night. Like, don't give us that shit ever again. You know, the one site that will remain from December the 29th, perhaps for the entire season of our 125th anniversary, is Fonseca sat there looking so lonely and dejected before his press conference, having been completely abandoned by the same people who have publicly displayed their trust in him and their confidence in him, and yet have clearly been negotiating behind the back of with other managers. And not only that, but have allowed this news to leak at the most inopportune moment. How it leaked, I don't know. But it's just like, you can never give us that again about a club that does things a different way. You just can't. Like, it was like something you'd see in non-league football over here was the stuff that happened last night. And I don't think that I can ever forgive this management. And just to be clear, I'm talking mostly about Ibrahimovic and Furlani with this. Moncada speaks few and far between. I don't think you'd ever send him up to announce a sacking. But I think one of those two absolutely should have spoken after the game. They had to. They had to. They had an obligation to address the fans and to tell them, you know, people might say, oh, well, he had to do his interviews and then they called him in and then he got his stuff. It called Fonseca in for a meeting, sacked him, then they all left. But you pull him in first and you tell him the news, and then unfortunately he has to leave. But then somebody has to go and announce to the media the decision that we've made. And just, oh God, man. It was amateur hour. Absolute amateur shit from...
It's cowardly, I think, from the management.
Yeah,
You
It
just
is.
I don't know. You're letting him take all the heat. You're letting him look like a fool by saying I haven't been fired when everyone knows it. Even he probably knows it, but he hasn't been fired yet, so he can't say, "Yeah, it's done for me, guys. Like I think I'm in trouble here." You know, you're not
Yeah,
going to
but
say
he
that.
did like an hour later, not even an hour.
Exactly.
Yeah, but you've
So
been told.
they knew they were just waiting for him to give this interview that he shouldn't have. They should have fired him and said, "You're welcome to have this press conference as your goodbye, or you leave now, and we'll go out there and we'll tell everyone that you know what happened." Because a real leader, which is what the management is of every company, the management is the leaders of the company, and this is a company. They love to remind us of that.
Mhm.
You fire your employee, you then have to justify it. You go to the media and you say, "We have relieved Fonseca for X, Y, and Z. We've replaced him with Conceicao. He'll be here in the morning." Or you just go in there and say, "Look, we've relieved Fonseca's gone,
Yeah,
and that's it. We'll let you know more when we have more." You know, you don't have to say anything else. You don't even have to justify it, honestly, but you do have to
nope.
face the
You
music
have
and
to
take
show face.
responsibility for your actions. Because right now
Yeah,
they're hiding. They only come out to do an interview when things are going well or to say how great they are.
we've
None of them
still
have
heard
ever
nothing.
acknowledged problems. None of them.
None of them have said a thing. There is nothing. I thought the statement that the club put out on the official website was very. They gave Fonseca 2 lines, and I get it. He'd been the head coach for 200 days, and you know
But
it's not like
still,
we've let go of a serial winner or anything. But you would think that, and there was a line that acknowledged, thank you and best of luck. But you just hope for things to be handled better than that. You've had all night to draft something to put out, and that's what you put out, and.
Yeah, that's the
We've
generic bare
still heard
but
minimum.
nothing.
the thing is like this didn't just happen. They've been planning this for a while.
Exactly.
So they've had time to like prepare a news conference or have like, hey, Furlani, Ibra, you guys need to go talk to the media, say these
Mhm.
points, and leave. You know,
Yeah. The only way that it makes a little sense is because I did see a report of this that it was entirely Jerry's decision
Mhm.
and that the others didn't have anything to do with it. So unless it was Jerry was the one who leaked it and said, "I've called Conceição. He's going to be our new manager. Fonseca's
Mm.
gone after this game," and then told the management afterwards and said, "This is my decision. I own the club. You do what I tell you to." You know, if they said, "Hold on, we don't want to sack him," and he said, "Well, guess what? I'm the boss, so you listen to me." And then they went about it. That's the only thing I could think of. But even that isn't good.
It's
You know,
damning either way.
it's
Yeah, it's
bad.
terrible.
It's
Yeah. The guy who reported that was the Marco Conterio from Tuto Mercato Web, and I don't think anybody's really said similar at the moment. But if that does turn out to be true, and Cardinale's gone direct line and said you're going to have to sack him, that would be interesting because it certainly isn't the image that's portrayed to us that he's, watching every game and that he. Well, just that even that he would have any notion of when is the right time to fire a coach, Like, that's why you put a competent management in place who can go to you and say, I think we've run our course with this particular guy. Um, we don't know either if he did go against what the other directors really wanted, I doubt it was a case that they all unanimously supported him. Cardinale's rung them up and they've gone, we think you're making a mistake. They probably were all waiting for the call from above to do something about it. But either way, it's all an incoherent mess, and that's what leads me on to have so little faith that Conceição is going to be able to fare any differently. And look, I echo what both of you guys have said. I think he's the guy that we should have gone for in the summer. I think he's not a million miles away from Fonseca, but he does have a better CV. He's won more, 11 trophies in 7 years in Portugal with Porto. He does have experience as a player in Italian football. Hasn't managed in Italy like Fonseca had with Roma. And there is something about his character, I think, that's quite. I don't know. I think he's quite a charismatic bloke, put it that way. And I think that fans are going to really. I hope fans are going to really get behind him because what we might see is a more entertaining style of football in a way because he likes to move the ball vertically. I think it's going to be. We'll do a separate bonus probably on Conceicao now it's been officially announced, but I think it's going to be good for certain players that we've got. I'll put it that way, and I hope that the results are quick because it's a results business, and we've lost a lot of time already this season, so they almost need to be quick. But again, it's just the whole thing of like, say things are going well, we don't even know if this guy's staying beyond the end of the season. You know, it's like we've got another caretaker in charge. That's what it feels like, and he's a caretaker with pedigree, so we can all be hopeful of an upturn in results. But until it happens, I don't know. It feels like we have ended this calendar year with so little in terms of guarantees and certainties, and we're going now into a January window, a potentially important January window, where we look to make a couple of signings with a new coach, who all the work that they've done on previous targets might have to go out the window. I get it; he plays a fairly similar formation, but he might want completely different players for that. And now we're going into to this window with a new manager to try and satisfy. It's all shit. That's what I'm gonna. That's what I'll end it with.
Yeah, you mentioned Fonseca's experience in Serie A going into this, having coached 2 seasons at Roma. He finished those
Yeah.
2 seasons 10th and 5th, and then he leaves
Yeah.
Milan in 8th. So, I mean, did the experience really matter? Like,
No.
it was right there. It was always so obvious that he was just going to finish average. He came into Serie A with a 50%, their 52% win percentage. He leaves Milan with 53.1 or something like that. I mean, it's
Mm.
at the end of the day, you knew what you were getting into with him, and it's just a shame that the people in charge took an extra 9 months to figure it out. And that's
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. Look, I think in the past as well, there's a chance that I don't know. So let's say that the rest of the season had played out under Fonseca and we literally finished 8th, you know, and we got dumped out of the Champions League at the first thing, didn't win the Italian Cup. You know, let's say it was a complete failure of the season. We might have then looked back and said, in December when things were bad, why didn't we make a change? Conceicao was available. You know, there is another way to look at it. And hopefully in a few months, we look back and say that was the thing that sparked the season into life. Because if we win that game in hand against Bologna, I get it, it's not a given, but it becomes a 5-point gap to the Champions League places, and it's not insurmountable. We're not talking about a Man United type situation here where they're 13th in the league and they've gone for Amorim because it's like a roll of the dice that they absolutely have to make. You know, there are things that can be salvaged from this season. I think Conceicao was quite a good tournament manager as well. Won a lot of cups, and he took part to the quarters of the Champions League on 3 occasions, I think. So that's punching above weight for them. So, you know, there are reasons to be optimistic. But again, it's like a shining sun or moon, it would be, in a very, very dark night sky. You know, that's kind of what it feels like. And we just don't have faith anymore. It's impossible to have full faith in the people that are captaining the ship. And until we hear from them, we have no idea what they're thinking, and we have no idea what the plans are. But they seem to continue to hide in this cowardly way, and they're not facing the music. And you look around the league enviously at some of the other directors, shall we say. I'm mainly talking about Beppe Marotta, who always seems to say the right thing at the right time. It's like we couldn't be further away from the stability that they have, and this is a club that had to change ownership because their other owners basically went bankrupt, you know, and how everything's flipped. Stability was at one point our biggest strength, and now we're just trying to cling on to things that were load of shit. Should we do some questions? Have we got to do a Juve preview? Is there any point?
Oh, I mean,
I don't know what the team's going to be.
I mean, we really don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I can promise you we're not going to have a single winger play. All 4 are out hurt. So, that actually is something that, look, I'm not saying I'm glad Chukwueze got hurt or anything like that, but I was a little nervous thinking, okay, new manager, Pulisic's hurt. That means he's not going to get game time in the beginning, which means maybe he never gets a proper look, which is exactly the situation he fell into under Chelsea. This is now his 3rd manager in 18 months at Milan. So, so much for the merry-go-round being gone that he's gone through. But, you know, Chukwueze's hurt as well, which means there's no one on the right wing. And then we have Leao hurt. We have Okafor hurt. So that's scary. It should be Jimenez again. typically you see new managers come in and they take over and they have a game in less than a week. They just play whatever the previous one did and hope for the best and try to get eyes on it. So I wouldn't be shocked if that's what we see. You might see Tamori play. I'd love to see him come back in. Not that Gabia or Chow have been bad, but I'd like to see them come in. Probably going to be Emerson, but cool if it wasn't. I don't know who though. So there's that. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know what his stance is on playing youth players. Maybe we get Camarda from the start, but something tells me we do win this. I think it's new manager effect. I think you just win it.
Yeah, I don't think Motto's Juve are all to be scared of. It'd be interesting to see what system he plays as well, because he's played both a 4-4-2, which is more of like a 4-2-2-2, if that makes sense, and a 4-2-3-1, where the playmaker is usually pretty close to the striker. So we definitely could see Morata and Abraham up front together. I guess with Pulisic, we'll have to wait and see if he is back. Apparently, he's had an ankle knock, which is set him back a little bit. So maybe he isn't risked from the start. But then for the rest of the team, it's interesting. One thing I will say is there were certainly as many players whose stock declined under Fonseca as those who's improved, and therefore this clean slate could bring about new resources that we didn't know we had. That being said, the players who declined are probably ones that most of us would be looking to push out the door. So we're kind of hoping for him to work a minor miracle here in the next few weeks to get us climbing back up the table again. And yeah, look. The Juve games are one-off. It's a cup game. Anything can happen. It could go all the way to penalties. Excuse me. They could rotate. We might name a very young team because of the amount of injuries we have. It could be very one-sided in that way. But I think Conceicao coming in, having taken a training session already, he'll go out there with the team. There'll probably be a new bit of enthusiasm, like let's impress the new boss. Maybe it all kind of clicks into place for that one game. But I think we'll lose.
I guess we'll see. This is probably our worst preview ever, but we have nothing to go on.
Yeah, we just fired a coach, so we really don't know how he's going to line up. I imagine we're not going to see anything crazy.
Yeah. Right.
No, probably be a low-scoring game given our lack of it. It'll be like the game at San Siro when they came for 0-0 and got it. I'd probably go with a 0-0 again and
play for penalties.
We lose on penalties or something. Maybe we win on penalties because we've got a good record against them on penalties. So I don't know, but I can see it being a pretty boring spectacle. I can see the Super Cup in general being quite a boring spectacle because you've got Inter Atalanta in the other semi, and they're both going at it for the league title, trading blow for blow. So I can't imagine they're going to go full team for both games. I think it's a really, really badly placed competition.
Who would you rather in the final if we do win?
I'm going to say Atalanta because I think Inter have hit full gear again. They've been on a real tear recently. That being said, Conceicao ex-Inter may be a chance to get one over on his old club in the final. That would be an appetizing prospect. But yeah, to beat Atalanta in a final would be quite good as well, though. Sick of Gasparini. So yeah,
that's it, huh?
Yeah, I was just looking in the pod questions thing on the Discord, but obviously a lot of them have pivoted.
Yeah, but there's a good one.
Go on.
I think it was, do you guys consider the Copa trophy a real trophy?
Yeah.
Isn't that one in there?
Yeah. Even if it isn't, then yes, I would consider it a real trophy. And I remember the celebrations in 2016 when we beat Juve out in Qatar. Obviously, we'd been a bit success-starved by that point, but I remember celebrating that and thinking, yeah, we've just beaten a major rival in a penalty shootout. Of course we're going to celebrate. Is it on the same level as winning the Coppa Italia or winning the league or winning, the big one, the Champions League? No, it's the bottom of those four things, but it's still a trophy. Tin's tin, silver's silver.
Yeah, I think it's a trophy if you win it. And it's made up if it's a rival who wins.
Spot on. Yeah, it's a fluid trophy. Matt said, which loanees would you want back now if you had the choice? I guess this is like, based on the concept of Conceicao giving a couple of them a look. I'm not
I
sure
don't
we
need to
can
answer
bring
that
either,
question because he already knows who I want back. He put it in his
Kalulu.
question.
Salamakers.
Salamakers.
Salamakers. Yeah. Salamakers would be decent, especially given the fact that we don't have a right winger in the moment. But Kalulu for me, just we don't even need a right winger. I just get rid of Emerson, get rid of Calabria, give me Kalulu back, and I'm a happy
Have
boy.
you seen that Juve apparently in for Calabria as well? They're basically trying to rebuild the Scudetto defense that we had. Calabria, Kalulu, and Tomori in January.
There's proof it worked. So
yeah. Would it work now? I'll let them find out.
there's proof it didn't work.
Yeah, there's proof it didn't defend after. Tell you that much. But yeah, Salamakers said something interesting after the game. He said, "What's it like to come back to San Siro?" And he got asked, "Sorry, what's it like to come back and play at San Siro?" And he said, "It's always a pleasure to come back to San Siro. I feel at home. Things in football happen fast. We don't know what will happen in the future." So that's like, I'll come back if you want, lads. That's what I took from that.
Yeah,
I can't say I was massively impressed with him last night or anything, but I do think he's had a bit of a resurgence under Ranieri, and the amount of positions he covers could be useful in that regard. But the one who's shining is obviously CDK, but we can't even consider him coming back because the obligation will be triggered in just over a month. So then there's Kalulu, then there's Pobega's doing a little bit better now, but it's all a bit like, you take anybody because of the lack of depth that we have. That's it. We'll do something on Conceicao separately, probably for the bonus pod when we get around to it. And for those of you who are expecting the 2024 quiz that will be coming out, we're recording that later this week. We've had to move it obviously for this episode. No way we could combine the two things into one, so stay with us for that one. Current plan I think is to do it Thursday, so we'll be out in the coming days. But in the meantime, I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. Find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher. AJ, cheers for joining.
Yep, that definitely was not as cathartic as usual. I'm leaving this podcast in a worse mood than I came to it. So thanks so much, Milan. Love you guys. And
thank you guys for waiting because I was running late. So
season of goodwill, unless you are the Milan management.
That was my Christmas bonus, right?
Yes. Yeah, you spent it all in one go. Well done. And Happy New Year to everybody. Again, thank you for all your support in 2024, for being loyal listeners and for tuning in even when there's been more bad times than good times. Have a fantastic New Year's Eve, whatever you get up to. And we'll see you again in 2025. Have a good one.
Gol! Ancora Teo! È una meraviglia! Il gol di Teo Hernandez da un'area all'altra! È una meraviglia! Senti il mio cuore!